Alright, another DraftScience video presentation. So it's part 2 in the bro analysis video. It's just the junk video. So two things to point out that I did realize, again, halfway through the video, is that he's using a lever to create the velocities, and that creates all kinds of issues. I guess I'll redraw that drawing. So he's taking basically a teeter-totter idea, and you push on one side and you can create this side goes up, and as it does that, there's different amounts of distance that will be covered, and but you have to get it right, because the 1/4 distance is going to be the distance that's going to be 1/2 of this distance. So I'm not even sure that he has that correct. But, then again, that would still mean that he's giving more velocity. So we don't know exactly how he marked it. And the other thing you have to do is that objects slide on levers. So, they end up having some momentum in this direction. So you do have to put some sort of barrier on a lever to make sure that the energy is in this direction and not in this direction, which is also a problem. It's not a great way to create an equal amount of force, to be sure that you have twice the velocity. Now, part of the reason why you can tell that his experiment failed in terms of achieving that half is because he did set it up where the distances from the point the object would leave on the lever would be proportional to the distance they have to travel to the springs. Right? Something like that. But anyway, the fact that their arrival times were different means that there was something wrong with his velocity. The velocity degraded before they reached the spring, and that's why they don't compress the spring at the same time. Because clearly, to make them hit the same time, you can just adjust the leaving points that are different. So they leave, this one leaves with half the velocity, because it only got pushed this distance, right? This one got pushed the longer distance in the same amount of time on a lever. And then all you do is adjust where the springs are to make them travel you want them to travel, the slower one to travel less distance than the other one, because it's going faster, so that way they'll hit the spring at the same time. So this distance will be twice this distance from this point to this point. So, and that way, so this is 2, this is 1 unit of distance. So by doing that, they would hit the spring at exactly the same time, compress the spring at the same time, and then you could get your measurement of how much they can compress the spring at their maximum amount of compression, and you would also establish that they actually do have the proper velocities. But the fact that he didn't match any of that stuff sort of indicates that the velocities weren't the same. And so he's also using a rolling device, but he's pushing it. So there's no evidence. He didn't even put some markings on the objects, that would indicate, where we could see that the object is actually rolling. So there's no indication that these things, even though he has them so they could roll, there's no indication they actually roll, that they are just being pushed across the surface. Now, obviously, when you push something like a wheel across the surface, you're creating a whole different kind of friction than if you don't. And again, friction is key to this experiment being done, is you have to make sure the friction is reduced as much as possible, because friction has a huge bias against the heavier object. The heavier object will pay a lot more of a friction tax than the lighter object. So you have to make sure friction is eliminated. And there's no evidence that these objects ever even start rolling. So they don't have a natural velocity, and their velocity is against a constant friction. So the heavier object's going to pay a lot more price in terms of friction than the lighter one. So the experiment really has no value, because it hasn't necessarily accounted for the ingredients that'll spoil the recipe of science. Science experiments have to be done carefully, and there was no carefulness in anything he did. So is there anything else I need to say? So, and then this experiment, like I said, this is a pretty clear argument that she's showing nothing here, so you get no details. Again, this is, I think, quite obviously it's too clean. It must be somebody else's video. So he's not even telling us what this video is of. So we could watch the video, get a context. So I've made the simple argument that if you do the radar experiment, so you send the same signal into two radar dishes, and they claim the interference pattern is created. So you have on and offs, where you have the path length differences. I merely stated that if you go to one of these off places, so there's no signal here. This is one wavelength of difference in the distance at this location. There's no signal. And all you do is to have a directional antenna. Okay, so you're only seeing stuff, you only capture stuff that it's directionally biased. It doesn't let stuff in from any direction. And you point it to this antenna, you'll get a signal. So in spite of the fact that it says off, the fact is this signal is getting to it. And if you turn it to this signal, you'll see that this signal is getting to it. And that's my argument. So they can't be interfering in this space by wave interference. Can't be the answer, because both the signals do actually land on the surface. And it's at the surface they're canceled, not in the space. And that's the provable fact. And so this has nothing to do with any interference pattern. It has to do with what happens when you take, as I pointed out, the obvious solution is that if I take two signals and I superimpose them out of phase, I won't be able to receive either signal. If I have a radio receiver, I can't receive either one of those signals, because essentially I've turned this signal into this signal. I've turned this frequency into this frequency when I superimpose them out of phase. Yeah, you can see that. So this has nothing to do with what I argued or suggested as an experiment. You can just prove there can't be any interference in space.
I'm going to cut the video off here now anyway. I did actually record another 20 minutes worth, but I don't really want to make a long video because there's a lot of information to take in.
Oh yeah, it would be great if it was actually information, if you actually showed the video of the experiment. So the experiments took up, what 2% of this video's content is actually showing the details of how you did the experiment. I mean, the clips of the actual experiment is a tiny percentage of this video. You could have made a video 3 minutes and shown even more of the experiment, and you still would have accomplished the task. But instead of that, you wasted the entire video on this buffoon nonsense.
Second thoughts, I'm going to tag on a few minutes relating to Gary's proposed experiment, which I think is a cheat.
You're just dupes. It's not my fault. You're stupid. You're lazy.
What's the
You're
use of
stupid.
this?
You're lazy. You're lazy. You're lazy.
The reason Gary's proposed experiment is highly questionable, to say the very least. Gary has chosen this experiment because it misrepresents the half mv squared formula. We all...
So this is all a lie. I didn't choose anything to misrepresent anything. I'm willing to pay people real money to do these experiments, to do any one of these experiments, even one of their own manufacture and design, to separate the difference between momentum and the kinetic energy formula. Clearly, you people don't think momentum is a real thing. You don't think it means anything. You don't think you use momentum. When if I ran into a brick wall, you're saying I'm not using up my momentum to disturb the bricks. You're saying momentum isn't a real thing that things actually have. It's an insanely silly and stupid argument on your part to claim that momentum has no meaning, and that somehow this stupid formula where you take this idiotic proportions. So why don't you show me how it works? Show me how you'd land on the moon using the kinetic energy formula, because I'll make the overt assertion that they never use this formula to ever navigate a spaceship in the history of spaceships. And when they say they only use Newton mechanics, they're saying it quite overtly that they're using momentum. They're not using 1/2 mv squared to decide how long they should burn their rocket engines. Because it doesn't work. Because it's not even close to a reasonable proposition. It has no theoretical reasoning behind it. There's absolutely no reason. You can't show me a single experiment where momentum fails to get the right answer. Not a single one. There's absolutely no need for this kinetic energy formula. It serves no function but to create wrong answers.
Into the false idea that the spring is necessarily going to accelerate that half weight to twice the speed, twice the velocity of this double mass. And it isn't.
All right, so he just said it isn't. Okay, so we just go back to Professor Lewin doing a real experiment, okay, with a little bit of clinical integrity. And we'll just point out again, of course it will, and it will within hundredths of a second, it will.
Okay, there we go.
There you go. Same exact energy. Same, and it's clearly the heavy object twice the speed. I mean, twice as long. It's half the velocity. Clearly. And if he puts two light objects opposing each other, he gets 193 and 197. I mean, he gets exactly the same. So it's always the same momentum going in both directions. It doesn't matter what size object it is. It always gets the same momentum. Always, always, always. Equal and opposite force. Fact. Steve.
It's barely accelerating this any faster. This demonstration shows it's easy to cheat the experiments. Hey presto.
So yes, it's easy for you to cheat the experiments, and that's all you've done here is cheat the experiments. By creating, these aren't even ball bearings. I mean, they have no chance of being frictionless. You haven't reduced the friction to a minimum here at all. You're just pushing whatever these are. Plastic things with coins in them. I don't even know what the fuck these things are.
Got your $4,000. There's a good reason he's trying to get you all to bet as much money as possible. Make him rich.
Yeah, make me rich, proving you wrong. Again, just understand, nobody, I know what he meant by the 4,000. Yeah, I'll bet anybody, okay, any amount of money you want to put up, okay, on what the results of the experiment done correct will be. All right, that momentum always works, always, always, always. You'll never find an experiment where it fails, ever.
Because he's a scoundrel. He's a lousy cheating scoundrel.
Right, I'm cheating by making the offer. And then I said I would double their money. That is, I'll give you 2-to-1 odds. So if you're right, you get twice as much money from me.
Look, the other experiments do show that the half mv squared thing works perfectly fine. It's only this experiment, the very one that Gary happens to be proposing.
So he's conceding the fact that this one proves me right. Oh, okay. But his lever bullshit, we're supposed to know that he precisely got half the velocity. So one object has precisely half the velocity because he did a clinical measurement of the velocities. Clearly he didn't do any of that. Didn't even show us he was using a lever. Like I said, I didn't even know what he was using as a propulsion force.
But he's obviously testing his home before suggesting to you guys. Go on.
I didn't have to test it because it's already proven by all the experiments that do. I'm just saying this experiment proves it, okay? If you just think about the implications of this experiment, it means that if there was the other side is a brick wall, this side still only leaves with 193 or 196 or 194. This side always leaves. It doesn't matter what is on the other side. This side always leaves with exactly the same joules of energy because that's what the amount of energy the spring can produce in that direction. Period. And it's always going to push the other object with exactly the opposite force. So it's going to be 100 joules both ways every single time, and it doesn't matter how I mix and match the weights. I'm always going to get the same momentum out of both sides. I can never change how much momentum the spring produces, ever, 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 ever. And again, it's that logical trap. You cannot escape that logical trap because momentum is energy. It is the accurate understanding. It is momentum that comes out of the rocket engine. The rocket engine is defined by mass, that is subatomic and atomic bits, moving a velocity. The faster I move the little bits, or the more little bits I move, the more velocity I get because I forced more momentum in the opposite direction. The more momentum I push in the opposite direction, the more velocity I'm getting in the, opposing that force. It's always equal. That's Newton's laws, and for no good reason you think there's a flaw in those laws. Because you're an idiot.
Put up as much money as you dare, because it's a cheat.
So he's not explaining how it's a cheat. So he's not explaining how if I push the spring a certain half weight in, and we put the twice mass on, and then we put the half mass on, that you will exactly get the same momentum out each time. Okay, so the heavier object go half as fast, and the half as heavy object go twice as fast. Period. And it'll happen every time because it works. And he's claiming I'm cheating because that always works.
If the light one isn't going very much faster than the heavy one, then they don't have the same momentum.
So again, he's saying they don't have the same momentum when they have to have the same momentum because the spring can't produce any other thing than a force. And the force is the momentum. You can't realize the force in any other form than momentum. You can only convert force into momentum. There's nothing else to convert it into because everything is momentum.
That has more momentum then. But if this half mass one is going double the velocity of this one, then they have the same momentum. This has more kinetic energy, and therefore it will generate twice as much electricity.
So again, he just says it. So again, he actually believes that he really should send a memo to all the wrecking ball companies that they're doing it wrong. They should just cut that big ball in half, or cut it in 1/4, and they can gain 4 times the energy. So if they made that wrecking ball 4 times lighter, twice as light, twice as light, and then twice again as light, they could gain 4 times the energy. So again, this experiment has no details, just absolutely nothing. What the fuck is this? Who knows? Yeah, no idea.
It will deflect the spring twice as much.
So again, it wasn't twice as much. Clearly in this video you can see it doesn't do it twice as much. We don't know the spring constant of these springs, but the point is that we haven't established at all a fact that the heavier object is actually going just half as fast. At the point they hit the spring, we have no evidence. We don't have any markings on this table. We have no way of knowing how fast these objects are going and whether he got that right to start with. They have to hit the spring with one half. The white one has to be, the red one has to be going twice as fast. The red one's the light one. The red one has to be going twice as fast as the white one. Do we have any evidence that that's what's happening here? No. No proof, no evidence, no assurance, no anything. Just trust Steve. No, I don't trust Steve. So clearly that one went pretty deep, and this one isn't going to go. I can't tell because he froze it before it was still, well, okay, you could see pushed in. But again, so we have no established facts here that this was actually going the right speed. Nothing to demonstrate that at all. And every good reason to believe it wasn't, because we don't even know if these things are rolling when they hit the spring. When they're rolling, they have to hit the spring. That means the spring's going to be moved by the fact that they're going to have adhesion with the surface. This is a terrible way to collect the energy. Again, if I did this shitty experiment, right? If I did an experiment of this quality to prove my argument, none of you people would accept it. You'd all be mocking it as, what a piece of shit. How could he do such a horrible experiment and then claim he's proven something? You're such hypocrites. You're such duplicitous, evil hypocrites.
It will lift the horse twice as high. I'm afraid the horses are a little bit too heavy, so I had to use pawns.
So again, I have no idea what this is. There's no way of knowing what the hell he's measuring here and how it's at all precise again. Nothing. There's no details, no nothing. So we're in all the trouble to make this shit, and yet he doesn't give us any information about how this experiment was done and how he compensated for any kinds of irregularities and whatnot. Nothing. And again, going up against gravity is the worst way to measure how much energy you have. Weight against gravity. Not a good plan. Okay, so I have no idea how the round thing is converting its energy into this. So clearly it doesn't do it very efficiently because it keeps on moving after it hits it. So that doesn't even make any sense. So how exactly does the energy go from the rolling object into the pawn? There's no evidence that you even are collecting all the energy.
It'll move twice as many marbles or whatever. These are heavy-duty staples that only...
So heavy-duty staples. So these are rows of staples? Yeah. So he's doing staple friction against the surface as the way of establishing how energy. So I would say this is just as bad as a clay experiment. It's relying on friction.
Bend a certain way. They're like a solid block of steel, really.
So, and here, look, the red one not only did that, but it actually moved after it hit. So we don't, we're saying it didn't even apply all of its energy. So again, we have no evidence that this mechanism doesn't have a huge bias for velocity. The faster you go, the more you move it. No evidence at all that this is a good spring. And again, why would he change from springs? And the objects aren't even the same size. They don't have the same surface area. This has a much smaller surface area. Look at the size difference between these two objects. Obviously, if I'm right and energy is pounds, you're changing the pounds per square inch by having the two objects a different size. You've completely changed the pounds per square inch. You've also increased the friction coefficient for the white object. It has now a huge, higher friction coefficient. This one doesn't even look like it has flat surfaces on it. So this one has a really big friction coefficient compared to the red one. I mean, there's a word for this idea of doing science with some sort of cleanliness, some sort of meticulous, attention to the important details. And he didn't pay any attention to any of the important details. Doesn't care about friction. Again, we don't even wear his markings on this lever if he's got these markings in the right place to create half the velocity.
That's quite a clear result.
I don't even know what's it made out of. It's a stick. It could bend. So we're still not even getting right answers.
Maybe I ought to figure out what I'm talking about before I talk about it.
Quote mining. So right there you can really see the difference. The two objects, this one's a huge surface area. So we know right now in pounds per square inch, even if they had the same momentum, you've destroyed their pounds per square inch because you've increased the surface area with which the force is being applied. So clearly, like a bullet or an arrow, you don't point the arrow, it doesn't go through the material as well. Yeah, okay, you change the surface area, you're going to change the effect. So a terrible flaw in this piece of crap as experiment.
Yeah, a very obvious difference between that and that. Give it another go.
Yeah, very obvious difference in the shape of the objects. Very obvious. So there, you can't see how this one's obviously half the size. And we don't even know, again, it's hitting at an angle, which means it's all of its, it's like a hitting with 100 pounds per square inch at one area there, where this one's hitting with like 2 pounds per square inch across a whole bunch of the surface. So of course this one's going to penetrate a lot further than this one. I mean, just a terrible experiment. Controls, yeah, the complete lack of controls, attention to controlling the variables. Didn't pay any attention.
Again, a very obvious difference between that and that.
Yeah, very obvious difference between the gigantic white thing and the tiny red thing. It's more than half the size, right?
These are heavy-duty staples that only bend a certain way. They're like a solid block of steel, really.
So he says the same thing 3 times in the video now, like somehow he's done measurements with these things and it's like a really good way to measure energy when there's no evidence it's a good way to measure at all.
But this experiment that Gary's proposing here is not the same thing. It's a way of bamboozling you into thinking that you are seeing the half mv squared thing demonstrated. It's not.
I don't know. So again, he hasn't pointed out, he just keeps showing this still image where he has the ruler on the spring. So again, he's basically implying that, I guess, if you actually push the spring in the same amount and then replace the 2 weights, that you will end up with half the velocity of the object that's going. That's twice the velocity and half the mass.
Because the spring isn't necessarily able to accelerate this to twice the velocity.
Why? So what would be the obstacle to it doing that? The spring can certainly move fast enough to do it. It's shown in the Professor Lewin experiment that it does it just fine, actually. It does it perfectly. So what's the obstacle to the spring being able to release all of its energy and give it to the other objects? All of its energy gets transferred into the objects quite efficiently. That's what the experiments demonstrate, that springs are really efficient in transferring the energy.
Of that to make these have equal momentum. This ends up having more momentum than that. I've just randomly slowed them down, so you can't really judge how fast they were going from the slow nose. But you can judge.
Yes, you could if you marked it. Okay, if you put ruler marks on the paper, then the slow motion will tell you all you need to know about the velocities, because you can just take 2 or 3 marks and establish how much time it took, and you can figure out what the velocity is. But there's nothing here. There's no way to tell whether you have these velocity correct at all. And again, it's the velocity when they hit the spring is the one that matters. So if you've killed the velocity through friction, that is sliding the objects rather than rolling the objects, you've completely defeated the purpose anyway. If the objects aren't rolling, then they're obviously the heavier objects going to be eaten up by friction a lot more.
How fast they were going from the amount they compressed the spring. Because if you compare to the earlier examples where that was going twice the velocity of that being half the weight of that, this has more kinetic energy, can deflect the spring approximately twice as much, producing.
No, it says you though. So again, that's just you're saying so. You didn't prove it's half the velocity. You didn't prove your velocities were right, and you certainly didn't establish how much spring compression there was. So you didn't even mark the spring. You didn't have this ruler when you did the experiments.
Twice as much electrical energy.
And again, this experiment, I have no idea. You didn't explain what any of this shit is. So there's just no way of knowing. You're hitting them into some sort of plunger that's moving magnets through coils or something. And again, the velocity argument would be... there's in a magnetic field, velocity does increase the energy. So it's not it's not a generator. You're not converting the energy directly from the rotational motion of the object into electricity. You're converting it by, pushing a magnet into a magnetic field. But again, we don't know if you're pushing them at exactly half and twice the velocity.
Half the mass, double the velocity of that one.
So again, no evidence of twice anything. So it's completely, the meters don't even match. I mean, it's bullshit.
There's no easy way to say it. Gary was wrong.
Okay, so Gary isn't proven wrong by this shit. And again, if Gary provided evidence as shitty and sloppy and messy and crappy and undetailed as this crap, Gary would get mocked and ridiculed by assholes just like you. You would all scapegoat out and say, no, you didn't do the experiment well. Look at all the flaws in your experiment. You didn't prove anything. You didn't establish anything. There's no controls here at all. It's disgusting as science. Nobody in the history of science could have gotten away with doing experiments this badly and have any credibility. And you know it.
is wrong. He's often wrong. I'm sorry, but he is.
Yeah, well, you never established it with anything called the credible argument or evidence. So you're still lacking a credible argument. Explain why the professional bowlers are using 16-pound balls. Explain why. They will have the capacity to knock down twice as many pins, twice as much energy if they used an 8-pound ball. Why are they using the 16-pound ball? Why? If your theory is right, why are they doing it? It's twice as much energy. Why are the wrecking ball companies using, tear down the building company? Why are they using the big heavy wrecking ball? Why are they using the big heavy crane and all that crap when they could just use they could make a lighter crane. They could use less steel, they could use less gasoline, less energy. More of the energy could go into swinging the ball if they used a lighter ball. Why aren't they doing it? It's twice as much energy. So explain, why are they not obeying your law, your rule that kinetic energy is real? Why aren't they showing you that it's real by obeying it?
And his supporters generally know no better. It's not their fault. They know nothing.
No, it is your fault. There's fault here. And again, it started with just the metaphysics. Leibniz was fighting for his religion, okay? And that's why he fought Newton. He thought Newton's physics was atheistic. That's his attitude. That's why he fought it. The woman was a free willer, okay? She believed in living force, and she believed that there was some sort of nature in the universe where there was some kind of, whatever it is, God energy in people. This is about their metaphysics. This isn't about science. It's about people with an agenda, okay, being totally unfair to the facts. And so you have been the dupes. You're allowing religious people to define your physics. And you're defending it. Because you're too stupid. Because you never read the history. You don't know a damn thing about the real story. Again, your feminist hero died having a baby.
About physics, they listen to him talking, and he sounds like Ken Wheeler, so they think, oh, he sounds like he knows a thing or two. He uses all the big words, but he doesn't know what half of them mean. He's just wrong. Experiment show.
Oh, whatever. So again, you haven't done any of this either. You haven't, Ken Wheeler's pretty easy to debunk on the subject of the Pharaoh cell, and he overtly lies about how it functions. So, you can catch him on a lot of statements.
It is wrong. What can you do? Experiment shows it is wrong.
All right, so again, this experiment shows that you're wrong. So I can just play these experiments. So I can play the train track one where they drop the heavy weight into the cart and it moves at half the speed. You say it lost half its energy somewhere. You won't be able to show me half the energy disappearing. You won't be able to explain where it went at all. Half the energy, you won't be able to explain any of it. Not a single bit. You won't be able to show it. You won't be able to show it doing less work. You'll never show it happening. You'll never show the two trains. You'll never show these two objects. If I put a little generator on them and I ran them on a track with their established velocities, with this 4 velocity and the 2, if I did that, you'll never show one of them producing more energy than the other. Because it doesn't happen. It's not real. Momentum's the right answer. Kinetic energy's the wrong answer. Period. Fact. No experiment proves otherwise.
What do you see?
Exactly.
The very thing that Gary says could not happen, and we cannot demonstrate happening. And I've demonstrated does happen. So the red one's halfway.
So again, he hasn't demonstrated, so it is a horseshit experiment. We have no evidence of what these velocities are at all. No evidence at all.
Twice the velocity.
Says you. They're different sized objects. It's just different shapes. So he has the red one further back, so it does travel the longer distance. Well, here's the spring mark. So yeah, this one's a little bit longer distance. But yeah, we don't even have the same distance here. It doesn't make any sense at all. you can't have them on this lever pushing them the same when they're starting from different points. They should be starting on the same line. So even that doesn't make any sense. So we just don't have any evidence of how fast either one of these are going, and they're not even the same shape. One of them doesn't look like it. This one has the whole inside doesn't hit the surface. Only the two outside lumps are actually hitting the surface. This one looks like they're all the same size, so that all of it's hitting the surface. A lot more friction. Okay, let's see what we get here. So they're not lined up evenly. I mean, look, he has these red lines crossed out here. He has, they're not even on these lines anymore. So what is this? But anyway, so let's just see. And then we don't even know if these two springs are exactly the same. Did he ever test the springs to see if they are the same compression? No, we have no evidence that they're the same. I mean, this is terrible science. Oh, so now he cuts away from it. So we don't even get to see it. Amazing. Thanks. So that made a lot of sense, right? I mean, I tried to go frame to frame and he cut it. Alright, so here, now they're supposed to, one of them's supposed to be going half the velocity, and yet they're now showing up at the spring at almost the same time, right? Does that make sense? No. Okay, so they haven't even left yet. So they're still being pushed. So this tiny distance, he has this lever, now he's pushing these two objects, and we're just supposed to assume he has properly given one half the speed. And we don't have any evidence of that. Alright, let's see. Keep going. There we go. Alright, so the red one gets all the way to this, almost to the blue thing here. And now the white one's still moving. And he froze it. So the white one was still moving towards the spring. So this doesn't obviously prove anything. Because the white one isn't done yet. Ah, see? Didn't finish again. So who's cheating? That looks like a complete cheat to me. That he can't even play the video all the way through. Isn't that showing the fact that he had to jump cut this and cut it into pieces like this? This doesn't demonstrate that he obviously doesn't have the evidence.
The very thing that Gary says could not happen and that we cannot demonstrate happening. And I've demonstrated.
No, well, obviously you haven't demonstrated. You certainly haven't demonstrated enough to overturn this experiment. So you haven't undone this experiment and proved this one is somehow a lie. And that your silly explanation of whatever it is, different momentums, is somehow the truth.
Does happen. I demonstrated it lifts the horse. Well, in this case, a paw, not the chest there, twice as high. So Gary.
So again, it lifts it how? What is this device? There's just no. What is spools of thread? How do we even understand how it lifted anything? Lifted it how? What's the mechanism?
Proposed lifting horses with pulleys. I'm afraid the horses were a little bit too heavy, so I had to use pawns.
So again, how does anyone even understand how this is a measurement of its capacity to pull something? I still can't. So again, apparently he has a string going over the two spools and then back to the pawn, and it's all about how far it pushes the string in will decide how much it lifts it. And again, these two objects aren't even the same size. They don't even have the same circumference. I mean, what a pile of shit. So again, you're honestly, you trolls out there, you'd honestly say if I did an experiment this crickety and rackety and crappy, that you'd sit there and say, good, you convinced me. You're such liars. So it certainly didn't show any twice as much there, right? Was there any twice as high there? No, there wasn't any twice as much, that's for sure. Not even close to twice. So again, he switches the white and the red. I mean, it's just so annoying that he can't even keep it consistent.
Gary is wrong. That's the sad truth. Please don't bet on him. In all probability.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, so whatever. Like I said, when this experiment is actually done with some precision, it'll be clearly demonstrated that momentum never gets the wrong answer. You haven't proven momentum gets wrong answers. This experiment's a pile of shit, and anybody who has any give a damn about physics should just admit it's a pile of shit.
He's done his experiments, and he's keeping quiet about it.
Now, what a bizarre conspiracy theory, and that's why I would offer people money to prove I don't know the answer already. Yeah, of course I know the answer, but it's not, obviously I don't have the experiment. If I have the experiment, I would do it and show it to you, done well. Okay, I mean, if I could get to, look, I mean, how much do I have to offer? Like, I mean, if I actually offered a university money, do you think they would, if I offer them $500 to use their air track and do this experiment, maybe they'll do it, right? But I mean, I can't make the offer because they won't do it if I make the offer. So somebody else has to make the offer. So I'm giving you authorization to make an offer to any college that I'll pay them $500 to spend a half an hour doing the experiment.
He's not letting you know that he's doing the work. So you're fooled into thinking that he's coming at this that fresh. Just be cautious of Gary. I wouldn't buy a raffle ticket from him.
Yeah, again, I wouldn't allow you to touch a single thing. I wouldn't want to breathe air that you've been near.
Maybe I ought to figure out what I'm talking about before I talk about it.
Ooh, he quote-minded me. So again, hardly half, So, see, he keeps saying I cheated somewhere. I did some shitty experiment. I didn't do any cheating. So again, what's this lie? Where did I cheat? Where did I show a cheated video? Where did I cut it into little pieces like this horse shit? When did I do that to anybody else's video? Alright, so we don't know what he's using as a banging force again. So where's the white one? Okay, so we didn't even see what pushes either one of these objects. So somehow I cheated? So he has two objects, not the same size, not the same configuration. He's just telling us they're the right weights, and he doesn't even establish what velocity there's moving. And so how does this prove anything? Alright, so I guess it's a spring, a compressible spring. So let's do this again. So again, if there were something like similar objects, you might have some hope that the two objects would be hit by the spring the same way. Obviously, this object has this whole smooth middle thing. The spring, it can hit it easier. We don't even know if he has the spring, so it's hitting the middle of the object, right? So if they have a different circumference, one of them will hit lower and won't be able to put the energy in because it hit it too low. So you have to hit it at the center of gravity, right? So, this has got so many flaws in it that, again, if I did an experiment this badly, all you liars are going to say you would trust it. No.
He's coming at this that fresh. Just be cautious of Gary. I wouldn't buy a raffle ticket from him.
Yeah.
Maybe I ought to figure out what I'm talking about before I talk about it.
So hardly had twice again. Okay, so it's some kind of spring device that he has to lock or unlock, and who knows whether he's doing that very carefully, but whatever. So the red one again. Now the white one's on there. So we put the red one on, then just put the white one on. So obviously much more surface area again, in contact with the ground, just an idiotic to make the same comparison, that you've launched them with the same velocity. I mean, the same force will be imposed on both objects, and that they've efficiently transferred the force when the objects aren't in any way similar in shape. Alright, that one didn't do too well that time. He only got it to like, it's 2 here or something. So that one worked. That time, this one looks like it had more energy, the white one. So what is he showing here? Oh, who knows? Alright, so we got up to like whatever, halfway up there, right about there. And it got right about there. Same exact compression. And so how am I cheating? So it only went about there that time. So same compression. I win. Okay, there. So the end of his video is proving my point. So exactly what I stated to be true. Amazing. Right? Amazing. Yeah, that was pretty amazing. Okay. Yeah, so let's see if there's anything else. Oh, look at all that. Isn't that charming? Horrible music. That was just pretty much a nightmare. Okay, so the description doesn't say much, but we might as well read it. Oh, look at all this crap. He put some other stuff in here. Okay, kinetic energy versus momentum demonstration experiments that Gary DraftScience says could never be done because it does not believe kinetic energy is real. Yes, I still assert you didn't do anything to change my opinion. He believes as did Newton. So he's recognizing this is anti-Newton. And Newton's science had already established all the movement of all the planets in the solar system. Newton had already, most of the ones they knew about anyway. All of the predicted with his momentum equations, all of those motions correctly. So momentum clearly worked without a flaw. All right, momentum defines energy despite experimental evidence. So there's no in spite of evidence. That's the whole point. You don't have any evidence otherwise. Momentum always works and always gets the right answer, of which he has none as usual. So again, all of the evidence is in the practical facts that there aren't any professional bowlers throwing 8-pound bowling balls. But anyway, forgive my mispronunciation of Emily D. Chatelet's name, or whatever her name is, who cares? So, but you're the one who's supposed to care about her poor reputation, and yet you can't even pronounce her name right. This video is made in protest at Gary DraftScience characterizing the work of, he's saying it again, on kinetic energy formula. Yeah, she didn't do any, actually, again, let's understand, she didn't do any creative science. She just propagandized for Leibniz's theory. Half mv squared as silly girly physics, and for his countless disgusting slanderous remarks against good people like physics girl. So again, I didn't slander anyone. That's a lie. All right, my remarks about physics girl's videos are completely legitimate, and no one has rationally counter-argued. It's idiotic to claim the momentum was 100% transferred, and yet you lost half the energy. Those are idiotic statements. It's a contradiction in terms. I can't pour 100% of the paint into a bucket and then claim I spilled half the paint. It's idiotic on its face. It's too stupid for rational utterance. I've tried to make this video a bit more interesting. Yeah, well, you failed dismally. Visually, musically, yeah, by showing girls jerking guys off. By essentially putting like porn gestures into the video. He's made it so much more interesting because we all knew that women are just sluts. He has so much respect for them. He's showing his great reverence and respect for the capacity of women. That he's showing them mocking, jerking guys off. Yeah, that was really cool. All but it's hard to please everyone. Well, how about pleasing somebody with a rational, scientific sensibility? And do you think somebody who's rationally interested in physics wants their physics to look like this shit? Then you're pretty stupid, in my opinion. So I may rock or acoustic. Oh God, versions too. Yeah, well, whatever. To me, you're just mocking science when you're putting this buffoony crap in it. Okay, you're just putting it in a tutu and making fun of science. You're insulting it at its core with this crap. All right, this video is made as a protest against sexist. So his whole video is an exploitation of women and an insult to them being anything other than servants of male needs. That's what he demonstrated women to be in the video. So he's clearly the sexist. All right, he's clearly the anti-female in that he didn't show females doing anything good. I mean, anything of merit, but being a toy for a man. Okay, science denying. Obviously, I'm science protecting. Yeah, I shouldn't. The rest of it's stuff that shouldn't be in the video. The intent here is to persuade Gary and others to stop making false pseudoscientific claims for which they make no attempt to show supporting experimental evidence, except I have solicited the evidence. Again, I'll pay somebody if you can provide a link to this air track video, okay, done, where they actually capture the energy. I'd pay you $100. So if you can find a physics video that actually shows that, I'll pay you for it. That's how much I want the truth to be seen. So you get $100 just to show me a link where they do basically this video and take it one step further, and that is allow these things to collide with another spring and compress it and measure how much energy they have. How much energy does this heavy object have? How much will it compress a spring, and how much will this one compress a spring? So have them compress the same spring, and then we'll know exactly how much energy they have, and we'll know that the light object going this way does not have twice as much energy. Again, their theory overtly says the little object moving the one direction has twice as much energy as the big heavy object moving in the other direction. They're overtly saying that's the truth. Now, Piro will worm out of it and say, that's not what we're saying. Even though the formula says that's the answer the formula gives. The formula says 100 joules is going that way, and it says only 50 joules is going the other way. So the formula clearly says there's more energy going one way than the other way. Clearly. I mean, there's no way to get around this if you give any give a damn about logic and reasonableness. There's no way to get around this experiment. But I'll pay $100 if you can show me this experiment done with that step further, where you allow these two objects to crash into another spring to measure their actual momentum, to prove that they have the same momentum, to prove that there is no lost energy. The same joules are in both of these objects. The same watts are in both of these objects. Okay. Comments. Jerry Hall. So total douchebag, asshole, piece of shit, crap fucker. Okay. I look forward to the next video. Smiley face. Maybe he hasn't seen this one after all. Find it hard to believe it, but if that's the case, the more fun it will be. Yeah, well, I only check Steve's channel once a week, just to see if there is anything. So, yeah, and I didn't have internet all week, so I didn't see this video. So Steven says, my feelings too. Wait, about your own video? I'm in no hurry. Whatever. I listened to him spouting at Piro in a 2-hour live room session. So again, there's no one who could deny that I was not extremely patient. I mean, Piro just goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And if you don't stop him from going on and on and on, you'll never get it. The counter argument will never be heard. because he won't allow the counter argument to be presented. Okay, where Gary did a great job of convincing me he probably hasn't seen it. I don't even know what that means. Where Gary did a great job of convincing me he probably hasn't seen it because he repeated the assertion over and over again about there being no experiment ever in the history of Oh, okay. So Stephen actually thinks he proved that he recovered the kinetic energy. He proved that there's twice as much energy in the faster object. He did it so well. No, yeah, obviously this experiment was so bad it proved nothing. I only listened to the first hour, then had to go to sleep all up night, so to be resumed, whatever that is. So yeah, like you, I figured this one's going to be funny as hell when he and his dim-witted followers get wind. Oh, man. So again, all these people are just such hypocrites. If I had made if I had documented an experiment as poorly as Steve did in these videos, you would have just been unrelenting in your harassment. I only held back the next video so I could improve it a bit. Yes, because it's even worse than this crap, right? Just to make it clearer, really. So he made nothing clear. He demonstrated nothing, proved nothing, established nothing about what was going in, what energy was going in, how he was applying the energy. Nothing established. And entertaining where possible. Won't be long. Tonight, probably now. Thanks. I don't even know what that means. Second thoughts. I can't help thinking he looks like he had a nervous breakdown. So this, more waste of time nonsense. Let's see, and it's highly unlikely in America. So he doesn't think my internet was down for a week. When, there were people who called my phone, and obviously it went to the Magic Jack answering service. There's clearly an answering machine on my phone normally, so my phone wasn't working too. I mean, so he just makes these accusations, and it's just like, what the fuck? They can't get someone's internet back up within 4 hours, never mind a week. So perhaps he's simply in denial. So you want me to show you the email? They actually sent me an email last night saying, thanks for sending back your equipment. I haven't even gotten the new router. I sent back nothing. I actually got an email thanking me for sending back the equipment. Do you think that can happen in America, Steve? I mean, what the fuck? You don't even know. You're just so stupid. Oh, God. But just an amazing accusation, right? He has zero evidence to make any claim that I'm lying in some way. He has zero evidence. And he's just doing it because he can get away with it. Lying works. And so he's just a disgusting lying piece of shit. All right, anyway, but why would Piro be in denial too? So maybe I'm wrong, like you say. Whatever this is. The more fun it will be watching this play out. LOL. Mindless marbles. This ought to be funny. I was honestly thinking maybe he was finally going to reflect on his lack of understanding. So again, these people have proven me wrong about nothing. They can't make a counter argument. They can't provide a single link to a single experiment. So I'm begging them to show me the analysis of the two-slit experiment done right. Show me the evidence. Show me the experiment. Show me the detector experiments being performed where they detected the photons. Show me any of this stuff. Give me a link to any of it. All right, and I'm begging you, show me the link to the experiment. So this is all you have. You have Stephen BROUGH's shitty experiment, and that's what you're going to rely on. So on all the internet, all the lectures, all the Professor Lewin clips, you can't show me a single clip of him collecting the kinetic energy. Not a single one that you can reference to defend your argument. And then you're saying that I failed somehow? No, you failed to understand, clearly. So when I found out that the only reason was Verizon shutting his internet, I was disappointed as hell. So he wrote more. I think both of them haven't seen this video, even if Gary gives some credit to this video. How could I possibly give credit to it? It's so fucking insanely, preposterously stupid. Such a waste of fucking human energy. He did more work editing this piece of shit than he did concentrating on doing the experiments accurately. He'll go back and say no experiment has ever been done because of some other reason. So again, you really think, mindless marvel, you think this is the standard. So all I have to do is really, I just take a stick and I'll throw two things in the air, or I'll do some kind of lame, crappy experiment and videotape it on my little flip camera and say, there, I've proven my point. And you'll believe it. And you'll get off my back because you'll say, yes, Gary, you proved it. Very good experiment. Oh, you're such lying hypocrites. Okay, I used to watch him in 2008. So this is Jerry the douche, dumbass, fucktard. Back then, he looked even worse. Oh, and compared to you, coward. The coward who won't even show us what they look like. Little coward. Pathetic coward. No content on your channel. Nothing. Oh, look at that. 3 subscribers from the coward. Okay, and this account's only a year old. So, yeah, so maybe that's a lie too, Jerry. Yeah. He was the guy who was always screaming for some reason. Some more bullshit. Half my videos, more than half my videos, frankly, were walk and talk videos where I'm just walking in the woods, Hard to avoid when you hit the subscribe button. It was scary and fun at the same time. What a bizarre statement. History and how nothing has changed, the same drama. And you don't think this video is drama. This piece of crap this asshole made. Your hypocrisy, again, is so glaring. He made a video where he was depressed and wanted us to feel sorry for him. So could you link me to this video, please? No, he won't link me to it. Oh, whatever. Sitting with his teddy bear on one side of the liquor bottle on the other. So link to the video. I'm sure I was doing comedy, but whatever. Oh, what a pathetic comment. You people, you're just so pathetic. So he says, so this is Steven. Yeah, I saw one of his old, genuinely funny intros to a video where he was pretending someone was giving him a blowjob. Oh, I believe those were mostly the GNU's videos. So, again, there's just no point. I never had short hair, so this is another... why would somebody... It was, weird seeing him with short hair. I never had short hair. So all it was, maybe I had it tied back on a very rare occasion where I actually do that. Like once in a video I did that. Maybe twice. Oh, you people are just so pathetic. You don't have any life at all, do you? Oh, amazing. Yeah, I'm not seeing the bottle as half full, though, because the advantage of him not having seen it yet is that he's still got a lot of explaining to do. No, I don't have any explaining to do. This is a horrible piece of shit as a video, right? No documentation at all. And you think it's fair to do that. So when I do the experiment, I'll provide absolutely no proof of anything. I won't show you that the two things are half the weight. I won't show you that they're moving at the right velocities. I'll give you absolutely no reason to believe me except my testimony. No other reason to believe that I checked any of that shit and got it right. I won't even show you the mechanism pushing the objects. And you'll say that's okay. I can do that. And as long as it shows my results, I win. And I can declare complete victory. You're just such hypocrites. All right. Let's see, where were we? The great news is he's now seen it and it's upset him. The great moron commences his rebuttal with the usual style of general deny and straw manning. So how am I straw manning? I'm playing his videos. All he plays is quote mines out of mine. He takes my comments out of context. I suggest an experiment using a directional antenna, and he doesn't even show how the experiment is at all relevant. He implies that somehow he's debunked it, but he doesn't even show what the experiment does. Nothing. Absolutely zero evidence that has anything to do with what I was saying. And you don't think that's straw manning? Oh, you people are such fucking hypocrites. You're just amazing fucking lying pieces of shit hypocrites. Oh, I mean, the double standards here is obscene. It's just endless excuses. It's clear that he will never accept an experiment that is contrary to his idea. So again, he's saying that this is real good evidence. And it certainly debunks this Professor Lewin experiment. Surely shows how this is full of shit. Yeah. Oh, God, you're just amazing. He still outright denies he doesn't understand the results of the double slit experiment. So, there's nothing in here on that one. But clearly I'm the one who's got all of that right. You can't make a single argument or provide a link to a single video. Show me anyone on the internet providing an accurate analysis, and I'll debunk their video and humiliate them all the way to their ankles. Because it's so easy to do. Because I clearly have the right answer and you all clearly have the wrong answer. You're the one who are clueless as shit as to what the actual experimental results are and what's causing the actual pattern. All right, and that has been going on for years. He denies gravitational lensing. Yes, I clearly deny that you have any evidence of this phenomenon. That's right. Even though it's right there what is it right there? In pictures. Yeah, where? Show me. And I'll show you how every one of those pictures has insane mathematical errors. It's impossible for it to be caused by gravity because there's absolutely no symmetry in any of those images. Intense gravity creates intense symmetry. Black holes are insanely smooth, idiot. So you can't explain the lack of symmetry. Anyway, there was no chance he was going to accept any of your experiments. Well, I mean, they're so bad. Should anyone accept them? You just come up with more nonsense every time. Stacking coins, question mark. Yeah, well, isn't that something worth questioning? Is the idea of why didn't you use ball bearings? You mean you don't have two ball bearings that have different weights? Or you can't find something else that has, rolling coins that are taped together that aren't the same size packages? They don't have the same profile? Yeah, that's not a very good idea. What does he mean by stacked, wrapped? How are they wrapped? I mean, wow. Yeah, you don't think any of that. He doesn't think those are important facts. So the fact that one of them has more surface area doesn't matter because friction doesn't happen. Okay. Great reply, vid man. So metamorph. That's the best he could do. Metamorph, the literate guy. Oh, hilarious. Thanks, I'm glad it pleased you. Yeah, I do have more, but perhaps I better give Gary a chance to recover, so to speak. Yeah, sorry, that's not going to take any work. I'm sure something suitable will come crawling out of his assistant sooner or later. I don't know what that means. LOL, what a great autocorrect. Assistant for ass. Ha ha ha. So now he know who does the heavy work. Whatever. Love it. Generally thought it was clever wordplay. Made me chuckle. This is what entertains them. Asses. Yes, that's about right. All is well. It's all is peaceful. Where's Wally? So I don't even know why this guy ought to just get shot somewhere. Hope he's all right, Steven. Shall I even bother? Same here, Ian. I lost my internet for a day and a half, so I'm only just realizing he's still not responded, and significantly. What is this? Perhaps not deleted the old Bill Lumberg. What is this comment, which he would normally have deleted quite quickly, so I must admit I am a little worried. Oh, isn't that sweet? Well, I'll not be worried when you disappear, pal. Yeah, you're a scummy lying sack of creepy shit. Yeah, very creepy shit. That's awesome. Glad you like it, buddy. Well done, Steve. So that's just another. You're just saying. So he's going to get praised for this pile of shit, and that if anybody else made a video this crappy, I mean, really, who would call it even science? It's so bad. All right. Well, anyway, that's enough. We'll do some more maybe next time or something. I mean, it's the same people over and over again. Here's another third comment by the same guy. Either he hasn't seen it yet or is completely ignoring it. Ugh, jeez. I'm banned, so someone should post a link to Steve's vid. Ugh, he has been a little quiet lately. So that's Jerry the idiot. And this is... Yeah, Michael Falwell. I don't know who this... the guy is weird. I mean, he sucks up to everybody. So I've blocked him finally because, yeah, he's too much of a two-face. Easy way to avoid the plague, don't watch television. I haven't watched TV for 25 years, blah, blah. Yeah, but you haven't been able to afford one, right? It's been difficult. I had to say I rely on my own common sense, but yes, I've managed to survive, LOL. Anyway, this is all just mush. Fuck it. Oh, Robert Ritchie. Well done, he says. So really, like I said, just such a poorly performed experiment. No details, no, no rulers involved, nothing precise. And he says, well done. It's just too stupid. Let's see. I'm doing the follow-up video to add a bit of context because there was 3 months of Gary's nonsense on this one subject alone preceding this, and it's hard to do justice to the facts in one short. You didn't do justice to your own experiment, you kook. Again, if somebody took the actual movement of the experiment, the actually conducting of the experiment. I mean, imagine if the MIT experiment was cut into these little pieces, and the rest of it was just pictures of girls and other kinds of horse shit, Who would call that physics? No one. All right. Just too stupid. All right, so let's just play this one more time because it just, like I said, the illogical implications are undeniable. That you can't evade the simple rules about this energy. There's always the same energy. The spring is producing the same energy in that direction and the same energy in that direction. You just can't change it. It's 100 joules and 100 joules, and that's all the energy there is. And it doesn't matter. I put a weight that's 10 times as much, then it's going to move, 1/10 is the velocity. It's just always... You can't change the rule. Momentum is the energy. There is no other way to measure energy. There's no other way to think about energy. Energy is the capacity to be moved or the capacity to move something else. It's always about movement, and that's all you're doing is converting one thing's movement into something else's movement. And that's all it is. It's all just transfers. Friction is transferring the energy to the ground or to the air or to some other thing. And it has to come out of your momentum. Your momentum has to slow. You have to slow down to speed something else up. I mean, and that's it. That's all there is. There isn't any other physics on the subject. mv squared makes no sense. It has no connection to reality. It means absolutely nothing. It's just complete crap. Like wave interference in photons, it never happened. Kinetic energy never happens. Oh. Anyway. Alright. Enough of a video. Oh. So I got hours of stuff here, right? But I still got another 2 hours of the Feynman video to post. So you're going to have a lot of videos to deal with. So that's alright. It's free, and you can always just go somewhere else and do something else, right? No obligations. So this has been a DraftScience video presentation. Till the next time and such.